verify themselves. So,
Yep, I'll do that.
okay.
So once again, thank you for joining this 1 hour session on just some reminders in terms of site visitation. My name is Professor Derek Allen, and I run the culinary, baking and pastry, lodging, meeting and event planning, and hospitality department at Sinclair College, which is in Dayton, Ohio. I am a past commissioner. I served 2 terms, and I've been chairs on site visits and also members on site visits. And as I relinquished duties as a commissioner, I was asked to do some different trainings or on behalf of the commission, serving as a liaison. So that is my role. And so today, as I said before, we will be just going through some reminders about site visitation. Not so much the differentiation between the chair role and a member role, but an overarching role of us as site visitors. So I'm going to do an around the room here. If you can just tell us who you are, the site visit that you're going on, and what school that you are representing. And I'll start from my left, and it looks like Iris.
Thank you.
Left,
Hi,
and you are
I'm
first.
Iris. I'm Iris Gersh. I am the program director of the hospitality. It's actually hospitality and sports, but I oversee the hospitality program at Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey. And I really wanted to do this. And I'm going on the Houston Community College visit May 20th to May 22nd. So I do appreciate your support. Thank you.
I did that one maybe many years ago, but that is a great school. You'll have a good time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Make sure you go to the Riverwalk. Okay.
Okay.
Not the Riverwalk there. There's some downtown restaurants that we went to there. It was a Spindle Top, which was at the top of the Hyatt. So that's
okay.
A good place to go down there. It's a great place to go. Mark, you're next on my screen here.
Greetings from Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm the executive director and associate professor at Northern Arizona University School of Hotel Restaurant Management. And I'm also commissioner now and just recently joined and loving it. I would highly recommend getting involved in doing these things. And thank you for being a part of this. It really does help our community get better as a whole. So, and I'm going on a with Ravi and to Ecuador, I think, in April. Right. So we're doing that one. So good. Yeah, nice to see everyone.
Good, thank you. Burkita, you just popped up on my screen right there. So you're next. You're muted.
I was here. I was letting y'all finish with the chat. I had someone in my office.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Burkita Bradford, Virginia State University. And this AI that you see, that's my admin. So I send her meeting invites for my meetings and it automatically sends her AI. So there's no spy. It's my admin. Thank you. I don't know what else y'all said because I wasn't listening. I had somebody in my office, but that's who I am.
It's all right. We were just introducing ourselves, what our roles are, and the next site visit that we're getting ready to attend.
Okay.
That was all.
I'm glad to be here today.
Okay. Thank you. Robert.
So I'm Bob Bosselman, retired, have done quite a few visits over the years, going all the way back to the very beginning in the early 90s. Scheduled to do NAU third week of March. Did it the first one a long time ago, and looking forward to going back to Flagstaff, hoping that it's not going to be snowing.
All right, well, listen, thank you and welcome. The Fireflies AI, is that you, Burkita? Okay, no problem.
Fireflies and Ruby, both the ones that say Ruby, my admin is Ruby. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay. All right. Stanley, we have just been introducing ourselves, our role at our current college, our role with ACPHA, and the next site visit that you are going on.
Okay. Hi, how are you? You hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Stanley Tapia. I'm the director of the International School of Hospitality and Culinary Arts in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm part of the commission for the last 3 years. And basically, I have an agenda visit to university in May. I don't know exactly the name right now, but it's in May and university is in Houston.
Okay. Down in Houston.
Yes.
Okay. Are going on a Houston site visit. Okay. Burkita, I see your hand.
Yeah, okay, I didn't follow directions. So
Okay.
that's what happens when you're not paying attention. So I'm currently serving on the commission. I've done quite a few ACPHA visits, and my next visit is Kent State University with Ravi and George from UMES. And that's in like about 2 weeks.
All right. Good.
All right.
So let me just, before I even go into any, screens and slideshow, there was something that came up that one of the past site evaluators and definitely esteemed chair brought up was about payments and reimbursements. And my encouragement, okay, to whether you're a chair or whether you are a site evaluator, is to come up with questions for the accounting offices to the schools that you are going to visit to find out what are going to be reimbursable items. Now, I myself have never run into a situation where I was not reimbursed, and I hope I never do. But a list of questions are always helpful. And I'll give you an example. Let's say, for instance, you're going to rent a car. And you have to rent this car, and you want to make sure that without a doubt that if anything happens to this car is covered. So you say, okay, well, do I have to use my insurance? Or can I use the rental car insurance? And that's one of the things that has come up where a school said, well, no, you can rent the car, but we don't reimburse you for the rental car insurance. So these are things that we want to know. So then we have to ask the school, okay, then how can we do the workaround? Because I'm here to do work on behalf of ACPHA for your institution, and your institution is going to be providing reimbursement to us. So what is the workaround for this? And then we have to get kind of guidance from the institution on how we can make this a win-win situation, both for the individuals that are representing ACPHA and also the institution. Because, sometimes this is not reimbursable because of the state. The state says this is not a reimbursable expense. So sometimes it's not just the institution saying that they don't want to reimburse, but that's why we have to find out in advance. Now, Ravi had put in his email, or should I say his eloquent email, that it's good to be contacting the chair or director of the program to be able to speak with the accounting department at least 45 days at the minimum in advance, so we know exactly what can be reimbursable items before going. So that is one of the things that I want to make sure that coming, Burkita, that is just one of the things.
Yeah, I've done
aware of.
a few visits with Ravi, so I have a little insight into kind of some of the situations he's talking about. And I think there definitely are there is an opportunity to maybe look at, I don't know if schools should be required to put up a deposit or pay additional, because there's two things. If you are a state school, they will only pay for basic economy flights. You absolutely cannot make any changes to that flight. I don't care. I used to joke and say you get hit by a car, but then I got hit by a car, so that's not as funny.
No.
but you cannot make any changes. You can only cancel. But I know that's a state regulation, but I had an experience that I fussed about and almost held out until I realized I wasn't going to get reimbursed. I had to, and Mark and I did that visit, you had to show like where it was drafted from your checking account. And I just felt that was an invasion of privacy. I don't care if you do just, because my thing is I came, I did the visit. Let's just say I was married and my husband bought the ticket. Whose business is it of yours? How the ticket was paid for? I had a receipt and I came. And so sometimes it's not, it's, and I pushed back as long as I could because I just didn't like it. And maybe that says something about me, but I just didn't, I felt like that was a lot to ask of a visiting team. I wasn't an employee. And so I don't know, because I know, for example, here I have ways that I can pay for things like through the foundation. So I also think that maybe schools should be a little bit more considerate. If the state says this, well, maybe I can get my advisory board to do this because it should not be stressful and confrontational to be reimbursed. And the situation with showing my debit card, it almost became confrontational because I just didn't like it. And I was like, I don't feel I should have to do this. And they just kept saying it's the policy. And I went out and looked and I couldn't find it, but I wasn't going to be reimbursed. And it was like an airline ticket. And so I try to get the school to pay for my airline ticket. So if I take a loss, it's just meals because my philosophy is I'm going to eat wherever I am. So, I think that we have to really look at, because so many schools have different policies. And I had one school, it took almost, I don't know how many months, and they were kind of lackadaisical, like, well, this is just how it is. And again, we're not employees. So I think we may have to look at what we're doing on the ACPHA side and how this can be done, because I know even at Virginia State, my school won't pay for insurance, but because I'm an employee, I'm covered by the state's insurance if something happens, which is very different. So there's no risk. So, which I don't rent cars on ACPHA visits either. I just take an Uber, whatever. So, but that's my 2 cents. It's interesting sometimes how it works.
I think two things here, especially in the interest of time, because I gotta get through some slides. That's why I really believe that it's necessary for us to have the conversations beforehand so we can address these beforehand. And then after we see to where we don't think that something is right. So let's say, for instance, Brakita, they told you before the trip that you were going to have to give this information that is personal and private. So then therefore we take that back to ACPHA and we allow ACPHA to deal with this on our behalf, to say, well, look, well, if I have to do that, then I may not be the person to be able to go on this trip. And so then that becomes, a decision for you to make to be able to do that. I see the hands. Please keep your questions about this issue, but I got to get to some slides here because we only have 45 minutes left, and I got about 40 slides. But I will be honest that the slides are only about 30 seconds apiece. So please, Stanley, keep that question, and I promise to get to it at some point. Okay, I promise. Share screen, and here we are. So when we look at these site visits, these site visits are what? It's an interaction. And this interaction is between the program and it's between ACPHA. When you go out to do this particular site visit, you are representing not only yourself, but you're also representing ACPHA as an organization. So make sure that we are mindful of that. So we know that, this process is the program itself. They evaluate themselves, to the commission through a self-study document. Then the team appears appointed by the commission, appraises, advises the program, and then there's a report at the end of it. Then we know that the team's role is just to verify compliance in the standard areas. Then there was evidence that these items match up with the report document from when we go to the site visit. And then the program has an opportunity to reply to the team report in response, and that's addressed to the commission. So we know that. Well, but then the commission, though, after considering the information derived from the preceding steps, will determine that accreditation status. And now we, last when I was on the commission, we were begin to have the conversations, about a 3, 5, or 7, and not just someone just getting a 7. So I'm pretty sure that those conversations are still going on. And this is my personal opinion. My personal opinion is the first time a school is getting accredited, I think it should be a 3-year. That's just my personal opinion, but the commission would have to discuss that. And the reason being is because the first time being, now if they got everything correct, sure. But I know that from other accrediting agencies, doesn't matter what you get, that when you are accredited the first time, you get 3 years, the second time, 5 years, and then after that, you can start getting 7-year accreditations. The program, as a part of its ongoing evaluation, should always be doing the planning and processes and continue to consider to act on these results of the self-study that whatever is especially deemed if it's something that is of concern. When we look at this one here, it provides an opportunity to verify the information, and the team members derive additional data clarifying the report, and therefore we have 2 matching elements. We've got proof, from the site visit itself, and then we also match that up with the document. But if there's any lack of understanding, discrepancies, we can ask identification. We can ask for any clarification at that point. But then now it's to stimulate growth and development of the program. So we're not there to be punitive. The interchange of information and the viewpoints and the raising of important questions and the issues and the interviews, this should inspire insights, because what it is, it's the end goal that we're trying to get to. So this way that we're going to be able to consider ideas that may enhance the program for the future. And that's really what the goal is. So how do we get to that goal? So first of all, approval of the team, lodging, meal arrangements, travel arrangements, and workroom if on site. Now, here's the thing that we were just discussing about the approval of the site team. We're good there. Lodging, meal arrangements, and travel arrangements. These items, we must ask the right questions of the accounting offices before we go, because this is going to enable us to be able to make informed decisions about how we want to deal with said travel. Some issues you may be able to uncover on your own. Other ones, when you have questions and you are in this stalemate, that is something that you have to bring back to the commission so the commission can discuss how they deal with these issues going forward. Now, I'm not opposed and I'm not for charging a stipend for site visit teams for things that are non-reimbursable. I'm not opposed, I'm not for. But we just need to be careful in terms of what I like to call a tipping point. If someone is on a tipping point and their school is on a tipping point on whether they want to continue to pay said money to ACPHA for the accreditation, that might be the tipping point. Well, now they're going to charge us, $500 for miscellaneous fees that are uncovered, and whatever is not used, they'll reimburse and send back to the school. This might be the tipping point. I don't know. So that may be a survey that ACPHA wants to send to the schools just to kind of see, because you're talking about 50 different states and you're talking about different countries. So there's going to be laws and different regulations on all these different states. So this is something that's very comprehensive. And I do agree with you, Prakita, and Stanley had your hand up, and Iris had your hand up, that I do agree that something has to be done. We can't sit on our hands on it. Before the site visit, team composition. You receive the self-study, all the necessary materials, self-study report, supporting documents, and now you've got the time frames of travel, or time frames if the chair says, hey, I would like you all to send me the portions of your pre-report to me by a said date. So the self-study is just a comprehensive description, as we already know, and there are 9 standards, which we know that. But it's critical, though, for us to read the entire report, not just your sections, but the entire report, in case you may come up with questions that an individual that's actually doing a specific section did not think about. And that's always helpful, okay? The team chair is going to assign the responsibilities, And then we need to particularly, become well acquainted with our assigned section of the self-study. Now, if your review, are the slides still showing on your screen? Okay.
Yes.
Top of mine. Thank you. If your review, suggests the need for additional clarifying information, that would be helpful. Just give this to the team chairperson and they will get back to the chairperson of the department. So therefore they can get clarifying information before the team actually arrives. But it is the team chairperson's responsibility to convey any request to the commission if this information rests with the commission. So when we look at this, helpful for each team member to begin their draft. Chair should provide the process, okay, for this to be done. Responses should be based on information available in the self-study, and then gather additional information during the site visit necessary to support any initial analysis. So as you read the self-study and preparing for it though, what else, do you need to know about the program before going? It's a good question. At what point does the document need further clarification or interpretation? Are there instances within the document that will need to be explored? And then what are the apparent strengths and weaknesses of the program? So these are questions that we're asking ourselves as we are devising our response into whether we feel that enough information was given to say, okay, we're good here based on the report, or I need to see actual documentation on site, or I need to talk to additional people while I'm there on site to actually really validate what was being in said report. So when we look at this here, all we're trying to do is this. We're continually asking ourselves these questions. Does the documented evidence provided, substantiate the program's claim in meeting this standard? Sometimes this can be done by them sending you some documents and we can see the documents, and those documents may be good enough. In certain instances, maybe the document wasn't written clearly enough and you got to get additional information while you're there. So say, for instance, the mission. I can clearly go out to the website to see if the mission is there. So in that particular situation, I can denote, yes, this was met, or no, this wasn't met. But there's other instances, whether it be, let's say, for instance, that they have a career office. And in the report, they say that the career office guarantees students 100%, okay, to get an employment position after they graduate from this program. Well, now I'm going to talk to some students when I get there to make sure that that's valid. I'm going to talk to the career office when I get there to make sure that that is valid. So I think you'll all get the point from that. Who are the people that you wish to interview? So refer to the visit schedule. And so if there's someone that you don't see on that visit schedule that you know, or that you've done some pre-research that you want to speak with, then therefore at that time, we can tell them, can I also talk to so-and-so, even if it's by phone, because I know that some individuals now are working remotely. I know that academic advisors now are starting to work, remotely. People in career offices are starting to work remotely. So you may have to talk to them remote or over the phone. But remember, there are 9 standards that must be reviewed and evaluated. So usually it's 3 each. And we've got the mission, administration, planning, curriculum, assurance of student learning, instructional resources, student support services, physical and learning resources, and financial resources. So I'm going to take a poll here, okay? What do you think on this list is the number 1 and number 2 standards that have the most concerns? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? Which one is number 1? Which one do you think?
3 and 5.
3 and 5?
5 would be number 1.
5 number 1? 5
me,
is definitely
Stanley.
number 1.
Stanley, number 4, number 5.
4 and 5. That is correct. 4 and 5, because they are relational together. Okay. 4 and 5 are the number 1 and number 2. All right. Now, number 3 is actually planning, showing definite planning documents actually is number 3. Now, this is only from my data from the site visits that I've went on. But I bet you if I take a poll, and some of you just validated that 5 and number 4, number 5, are usually the ones that are the most that are out of compliance. And that's where I'm going to spend some time on. During the visit, business professionalism, business attire, positive attitude, maintain high ethical standards, avoid making comparisons with other programs. Can't stress this enough. Adhere to the schedule as much as possible, and then socialization should remain consistent with the purpose of the site visit. Okay. I want to go back to this one here. Maintain high ethical standards. For my institution, when I go on a site visit, even though I'm representing ACPHA, I'm still representing St. Clair College as well. I cannot accept any gift over $25. I cannot. That is state law from Ohio, and I work for a state institution. So I have to abide by that. So sometimes they like to give us coffee mugs and sweatshirts and all those types of things. I always ask the question, I need to know how much this was for a purpose for ethics, okay? Violation. And I don't want to be an ethics violation. They say, oh, such and such, okay, I can accept that. So listen, I'm sorry, I can't accept that. And so maybe they'll give me a pen or a pencil, but I still have to know what the cost of those are too as well. So I always make sure that you understand your state policy, okay, because you're representing two parties. You're representing ACPHA, but you're also representing your institution too as well, because your institution name is also on the documents. It doesn't say your name and ACPHA. It says your name, your school that you're representing, and also representing ACPHA. So be mindful of that. During the visit, interviews with administration, the initial meeting, avoid discussions related to any findings based on preliminary document. Avoid that. Only ask what's relevant to the actual standard. Okay? We don't say, hey, look, I found this, or hey, I found that. No, we don't do that. Interviews with constituents, faculty and staff, and students advisory board. The process is the same way. We're always going to be collegial. We do not discuss things that we may have found with any of those individuals during this visit. Okay. We discuss that at the end. All we are there to do is to validate what is in that report. So they either have it or they don't have it, or they either fixed it before we got to the Tuesday, or they didn't fix it before we got to Tuesday. So during that visit, our purpose is to verify the information. That is what our purpose is. And I'll send everybody a copy of it. Okay.
Good morning.
There we go. I'm going to mute there. There we go. So what we have here is that assessment plans, marketing, strategic evidence, et cetera, instruments used for data collection, during the site visit. We're there to verify. Sometimes they'll send you these beforehand. Sometimes we have to verify on site. Team conferencing. So now what we're doing is we're pulling resources of information together to actually clarify. There have been instances where I've seen or heard, that someone else found some information that someone else's section was lacking. So, and that's why we have to collaborate and speak about, all sections. Well, and then follow evaluation report format. And so we develop assigned sections, which we did that, the drafts, and then we check the reporting thoroughly for spelling, grammar, formatting, and then we always want to, come away with the program strengths were. So the report itself, have a consistent flow, identify the full standard, address team responses, standard is met, strengths, standard is not met, and that's when we have recommendations, when we have concern. So, but contain consistent verbiage and format, is important in terms of throughout the report. The meetings, the team members should always have questions and try to have them in advance. But sometimes when you're on the site visit, sometimes questions will arise based on the information that someone is giving you during real time. During that visit, so we got be, seek, take, remain, and refrain. So site visitation team members need to be prepared to answer any questions regarding the ACPHA process. When we talk about the seek, if a site visitation team member cannot answer a question, seek assistance from the chair. Or sometimes seek assistance from a commissioner or past commissioner, because sometimes I've gotten phone calls. Sometimes Michelle has called me, Michelle Mosley, she has called me while she was on a site visit and said, hey, look, this is what's going on. Help me how to proceed. So sometimes you may have to go that route. Take copious notes, remain positive and professional and upbeat, and refrain from being prescriptive, because we're not there to tell them what they should do. We're offer advice at what they could do. Got a few more slides. Data collection. This is where we start to run into trouble here. Sometimes in that section number 4, in section number 4, there's a lot of data collection on assessments. ACPHA has designed documents, okay, for data collection. So if the school doesn't want to use that, then they can come up with their own, but we have to see data. And a lot of times schools will tell us what they're doing, or they'll say what they're doing, but then we don't have the evidence of the data collection that they're actually doing it. So I cannot stress that enough, especially when it comes to section, or should I say standard number 4. Any actuality occurring, with the claim must be substantiated with real evidence. Data will be collected or provided, and these items should be in the team workroom. It should be in the self-study exhibits or some other documents, during the interview process. But the rule, if there is no evidence, then it didn't happen. You can tell me all day long that we meet on a periodic basis, and your staff can tell me that we meet on a periodic basis. But if I don't see meeting minutes, then that meeting didn't happen. The evidence should always be referred to when writing the report. Did I see it? Did I hear it? But did I hear it and see it? Team conferencing. So the site evaluation team should come together at the end of each day to discuss their findings. Disagreements. Sometimes they will happen. Disagreements should be thoroughly discussed in private with all site visitation team members. And at the conclusion of the discussion, the team should generally reach a consensus, on any dividing issues. And if we can't reach the consensus, the chair is going to make the final decision. The team report, it should match the ACPHA self-study standards, demonstrate the writing of each team member, but it should have a consistent flow. It should be clear, non-prescriptive, must reflect the chair's assignment for each team member, and in a response, be thoroughly and clearly demonstrate the evidence of how the program is or is not meeting each standard. Team report, as we already talked about, consensus. Team must have a rough draft of the report for the review, and then throughout the visit, the team will be noting strengths, weaknesses of the hospitality program to be evaluated in their final report. So using consistent language, which we've already talked about, consistent language, strengths, suggestions, standard is met, recommendations. And these are just definitions. And as I said, I'm going to send all of you these slides, okay, so you don't have to worry about that. Items to avoid. Avoid rhetorical questions, avoid comments or suggestions relating to personalities within the program, avoid prescribing as opposed to suggesting, and then do not forget, that the identification of strengths is fully as important as pointing out the things that have caused the team to render a standard not met. So if you find strengths, list them. Then there's an exit interview. So it's imperative that the tone and content of the oral version of the team's evaluation report be consistent. Okay, the oral report should leave no doubt about what standards were met and not met. Okay, so there should be no ambiguity there. An oral report may be interactive in nature, but only in nature of the interaction of us reading the report, and that's it. If they have any comments about that report and what they believe that was right and was not right, that's taken up with the commission. We've done our job as site evaluators. And they have a response report that they can put in that response report that will go to the commission. But that is not our job to be combative with what they feel. Our report is our report. We might draw attention to the strengths of the program and be specific on a standard not met and why it was not met. During the exit interview, the department leader program may ask questions on how to go about the meeting. They can do that. Program needs to understand what they need to do in order to be in compliance. And then they have full opportunity to respond in writing to the commission. And so therefore, there's the exit interview and reading the full standard, etc. So I'll send you those slides in the interest of time because it's 12:38 and I'm going to have time for questions at the end. Follow-up steps on the final report. So the team chairperson is going to write an introductory, concluding sections of the report in addition to any areas of the program life for which he or she has assumed specific responsibility. Then the chair is going to make the edits and the drafts, and it expresses cohesiveness and understanding of the program. Now, who can get a copy of the final report? Well, when the final report is completed, the chairperson is going to send an electronic copy of the form to the program, okay, to the site team members and the commission. So a cover letter of instructions of how the program should respond and recommendations and a timeline of response document that's going to go to the program, also to the commission. Here's the commission's responsibilities. So the self-study report and evaluation and the program's follow-up report are all studied by the members of the commission. So the commission is going to make its decision on accreditation status during the executive session. But then evaluation report and the self-study report, as well as any documents or working papers generated by the team, are confidential. Okay. And so if you're on the commission and it's your team and it's your school that's being discussed, they're going to ask you to step out of the room. And that meeting portion or of that portion of the meeting, it'll be confidential, and no commission is going to express to you what was discussed in that particular meeting, because it is imperative that the site team members not discuss this report with anyone outside the commission, as it would jeopardize the confidentiality and accreditation process. And that's what we don't want to do. And here we are. And then I'm going to get to those questions that we have. Those expenses. Expenses for meals and lodging and travel are the responsibility of the program. So please be mindful of the choices. And that's why we led with this today. And we're actually going to end with this today in terms of what they will reimburse. If I know ahead of time what they will reimburse and what they won't reimburse, then I gotta make an informed decision based on what they tell me. And if I don't feel comfortable with it, then I have to respectfully contact the commission and say that, look, these are the items that are not covered. And if they don't cover these because these are necessary, is the commission going to cover these? And that's a legitimate question to ask. And then the commission can say yes or no. Or the commission can say yes, and then we'll have to figure out exactly how much expense is the commission incurring of these extra expenses, and then figure out a win-win situation for the institutions and for the individuals that are going out on the site team. And if the site team has recommendations, I think they should bring those up to the commission to give them some food for thought to be able to discuss. Because out-of-pocket expenses should be entered on expense vouchers or on forms required by the institutions visited and forwarded to the program administrator. There have been times, which I didn't like it, but there have been times where reimbursable income, they taxed me. And I'm like, wait a minute, how dare you tax me. This was not income for me. This was a reimbursement. And then I'll have to contact their controller and explain to the controller, because my undergrad was in accounting and in finance, and explain to them what they need to do in order to make this right. And then we go kind of round and round a little bit, and then they see my point and they say, okay, you know what, you're right. Send that back, or we'll send you this, and then they make the revisions. Okay. Because this is not income. And the schools that I know that do this are the ones that have you sign up as a vendor. So ones that have you sign vendor paperwork before going, ask them, is the check going to be considered as income or a reimbursement? Because that makes a difference, okay, when you're signing up as a vendor. So be mindful of that. But once you've submitted your final report to the team chairperson, your responsibilities to both the program and the commission assignment will have ended. All right. So if you should be contacted by a representative of the host institution or program with questions or comments, simply refer them back to the commission. Okay. And that is what you want to do. So I'm going to stop share now. I will send you all a copy of these slides. I know that Stanley, you had your hand up with the earlier question or comment about what we were speaking about earlier. And Iris, I know you had your hand up too as well. So if any of you have any questions, please, now is the time. We have 15 minutes left to discuss. Floor is yours. Well, you are muted.
So I have a couple of questions. So one of them is, I understand this issue with like reimbursement. So sometimes when we're going on a business trip, we can get like a travel advance. Is there anything like that? Because it seems like that might eliminate some of the issues. But I was reading that somebody, it took them like 2.5 months to get reimbursed. I'm not sure who that was, but
See, but that's a question there that we want to. I'm gonna get to you, Burkita. I see that hand up. That's a question there that we want to always make sure that we ask that institution. For the time I turn my paperwork in, and I'll get to you too as well, Mark. All of you are going to have a chance because we got time. But that's one of those questions that I always ask. Hey, when I turn in my final paperwork, when can I expect a reimbursement? And who is responsible for my reimbursement? May I have their email address and their phone number? So when that happens, when I turn my paperwork in, I call and say, hey, and I'm going to make up a name here, Fran, I want to make sure you got my paperwork. And Fran says, yes, I got your paperwork. Now, they all told me that I'm going to get reimbursed in 15 days from the time I turn this in. Can I trust you with that 15 days? And Fran will tell me yes or no. And I say, all right, Fran, on 15 days, I don't want to have to call you back.
So my question was, though, can you get the money in advance? So
right.
You buy your.
That's going to be up to that institution. And most of them do not give you the money in advance. Most will not.
Yeah.
But it's not, but listen, but the thing about, I always say a closed mouth doesn't get fed. You can ask that question because I've had plane tickets actually paid for in advance by the institution. So never hurts to ask.
Okay.
Hurts to ask.
I had a couple more, but I want everybody to have a chance to ask.
Okay, all right. Stanley, you had your hand up earlier before we started.
Yes. Thank you, Derek. I have the questions because in relation of my experience, I'm going to talk about like a director who received a visit and like a part of the share of a visit. When we talking about meals and travel expenses, we're talking about after the visitor leave their home to arrive to the university, or when they are in the destiny of the university who be accredited. Because I received from the taxi that they use from their home breakfast, lunch in the airport. When they leave from the university, another breakfast, another lunch, the other taxi, and we pay for that. The university pay for that because, but I don't know if the other that this is part of the requirements, and this is clear from the universities. And other, this is a recommendation because, for example, when one of the visitors requests a reimbursement, we have in our university like a requirement. We need an official ID, license, passport, in order to make a check. And one of our visitors said that in relation of their in relation, she don't feel fine about send this information to the university.
I wouldn't either, but go ahead.
And I said, which is fine, and this is what we do. Is what we do because
Right.
we request a driver's license. That if we will make a transaction in other place, what we do is I working directly with our office, the commission office, and at the ACPHA office send me the invoice, and I make the payment to the ACPHA office, and the ACPHA office make the payment to the visitor.
Mhm.
Do you have an answer for my first questions, Derek?
Well, in that there's two answers here. All right. First and foremost, yes, it is supposed to count when you leave your home.
Okay.
There's a but there to that first question. Okay. The but is, what time did you leave your home? Did you leave your home at 10 a.m.? So that was time for you to eat breakfast at your house. So some institutions actually kind of look at the time frame or timestamp of these reimbursable expenses. Some institutions say, okay, well, look, we'll give you 75% of your travel on the first day, and then 75% of your meals and expenses on the travel day of the last day. So I always ask, what is the protocol for your state, so I know how to play ball in your state? Okay, that's first and foremost. Second, okay, what I do is this, as I say, okay, I get on the website and it is, I just go to travel, I just type in travel reimbursement .gov. That's all I type in, travel reimbursement.gov, and it takes me to every state. So I go on to every state and it shows me how much I can be reimbursed for meals, shows me how much I can be reimbursed for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. And it shows me how much I'll be reimbursed for lodging expenses for that particular state. Okay. Because let's say, for instance, my breakfast cost me $10, but the state for that state only reimbursed for $8. Then I can't go back and tell them that, look, you owe me 10. I have to look at what that state. So that is one of the things that you always want to make sure that you look at before leaving, is what is the travel reimbursement for that state. And you can get that on the website. And I just usually go to Google and I just type in travel reimbursement and I just put gov. And then I think it's like www.irs.gov travel, something like that. But that's what I do before I go. So that's how I answer question number one. Yes, it should be from when you leave your house, but you may not get total reimbursement based on what the state is going to reimburse you for. And if that's what the state is going to reimburse you for, there's nothing that we can do about that. The second
it's the same, Derek, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's the same if we have a flight connection that we have to, that the visitor has to stay 1 day because it's international flight or something like that. The university has to pay this all the hotel, breakfast, dinner, and lunch. It's the same. Yeah.
Yes. That
Okay.
is all the same. But I always, like I say, anytime I'm chairing a site visit, I'm always the first people I call is not the program director. When it comes to the first person I want to, well, put it this way, my first conversation with the program director is reimbursement. That is my first, before we even talk about their program. My first questions are about reimbursement. Those are always my first question. And I only have done that, Stanley, ever since I've gone on these visits. And when I started seeing that when I have to sign up as a vendor before going, then they want to tell me that this is salary, this is compensation for me and not reimbursement. And they take taxes out of that. That's why I started asking those questions. The latter part of your question about sending my identification before coming, I think for that one there, I would say, is there a way that I can give you my identification on site? Because I don't really feel comfortable sending this to you, especially over the internet. A copy or fax or facsimile or something that has been copy and pasted over the internet that has my identification numbers on that. You know, and they'll tell you, oh, well, it's a secured site and all that. Yeah, I get that part, but hackers are everywhere and hackers get into secured sites. So that would be my question on that one, because I really would have a serious concern with me sending that much information about me over an electronic device. Okay,
I understand you, Derek. I'm with you 100%. The point is that when I try to make the reimbursement in our accounting office, they said in order, it's part of the law, it's part of our procedures. In order to make a check, we need to verify to whom we make the check, and these are our requirements.
Okay, then I'm going to go. I'm going to
And
go to their
I
office.
resolved that, just call in the office, and the office said, okay, they send me because they are already all the documents and everything, because we make payments on yearly basis. They send me the quote, I pay to the ACPHA office, and then ACPHA office send the check to the team visitor.
Okay, and yeah, I mean, you might have to do it that way too, but this is what I'm going to do probably before I leave, and that's why it's good that you've had that situation. So now
Exactly. Maybe see you exactly if the receipt before you leave, maybe you have before you leave the place. I know that. Okay.
Yeah, so before I leave, I'm going to then look, here's my identification showing who I am, because I'm not going to let you take a copy of this. I want you to see this is who I am, but it's good. This way you can ask those questions, you know, before you get there. If that's part of their policy, that's part of the policy, and I get that.
Exactly.
But if I know the policy ahead of time, that gives me to set up a strategic plan on how I'm going to deal with this issue for my safety and security for me, but then to give you what you need. Here's who I am. So you can send an email to so and so and so and so that they verified who they were in my office. And here's the address that you're going to send it to. But I'm not going to let you make a copy and all those things of my identification, especially in another country. I'm not going to do that. You know, not going to do that.
Thank you, Derek.
Yep. Brakita, you had your hand up, and then Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to say two things really quickly. One, I think in most instances, my experience, it hasn't been not being fully reimbursed, but the duration. And if maybe that's something that could be held a conversation. And I get what you're saying, you know, ask, but asking does not always result in, you know, being reimbursed in a timely manner, if you will. And just in my personal life, I prefer not to use credit. And so, you know, I don't want to be carrying an airline ticket over on my credit card, because I don't do that. And so when you start getting 45 and 60 days out, then it's like, okay, I think that's more than reasonable. We've done what we were supposed to do. We've done the visit. So I think the time in which someone is reimbursed should definitely be addressed. And then the last thing is, I think in terms of,
let me address that point. I think then what will have to happen is there should be some document that the school signs, or a school representative signs, about reimbursement. And then if it's not done in that specific time frame, then they get maybe some type of penalty.
I agree, but I think it's going to have to be driven from the office.
Yeah, it's going to have to be driven.
Because then the pressure becomes on the chair, and it's almost embarrassing. Like, I don't like confronting people over money that is mine, and it puts you in a very uncomfortable situation. And then the last thing is, I think that in terms of the policy,
let me get to that last point I was going to
I'm
make.
trying to finish there, and you're talking.
I know. Hold
You're
on.
talking more than me because I want Mark to get his question in.
He's gonna get his question, I promise. But no, it's unfair to you because of the interest, though, that you also have to bear on that amount.
Well, absolutely.
You know, and that's the last point that I was gonna make. That's unfair.
Yeah, I mean, because my thing is, so I typically will pay cash for my tickets because I don't want to be carrying over, and then you're cutting into my maybe entertainment money or just general principle. I don't spend that much money because I'm cheap. I'm a frugal person. And the last thing is, I like your points about knowing the policy, but I think that maybe we can start asking the chair there or the accounting person to reach out to us and send it to us. I don't think I should have to go look for it. One, what if I find something that's incorrect? Because there is old and incorrect information on the internet. Because I did do that at the school. They told me they had to see my and I couldn't find it. And I said that I kind of need to let that go. But anyway.
No, when I asked that chair, I want name, email address. I ain't going out on that site looking for nothing. I'm going name.
Yeah, what I'm saying is when the self-study is submitted, maybe they can just go ahead and say like, frequently asked questions or helpful information or something like that. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, and include that with turning it in. So then we can say, okay, this is what you gave us and this is what we have. And so this is our expectation. And instead of us having to look forward or ask for that information, maybe that's something we can start having. Hey, we want you to include the information for the person that's going to be working with the reimbursement and kind of go from there. So that's all I got. Okay, Mark, I tried to give you some time.
Bring that up to the commission about maybe sending a checklist, some type of checklist.
All right, I'm gonna have to remember that.
To the program, to where here's frequently asked questions of site members. So therefore, as soon as before the self-study is even submitted back to ACPHA, these are things that they could be working on prior to. And it would have on their slots who was in accounting should we contact with their information, who this should we contact, et cetera. So therefore, all of our questions can be asked before we start making flight arrangements, rental car arrangements, hotel arrangements, if we have to make those on our own, et cetera. Mark, the floor is yours.
All right, I'm going to be quick. All right, take care, Bob.
Take care, Bob.
So real quick, first, most important, Burkita, forgiveness is for you, not for the other people.
Yes. Yes.
And second, I think we're all tracking the right way. What I was thinking when we were talking about this earlier was in the accreditation application process or reaccreditation, there's a form that each place has to fill out that addresses a lot of these issues. And then that you have to go, like as the chair, I'd have to go to my financial oversight team and say, how do we reimburse? What's the expectation? What are the policies? In a nutshell, we do pay for this. We don't pay for alcohol. We pay for this. We pay for this. Yes, 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 yes. Almost like a checklist. And that could just be in the application process and put that onus on the institution, not ACPHA. I just wanted to throw that. We're all tracking that way.
Because they have to, because that document, in that application, it has to be signed. Yeah. And sent back. So that means you adhere to all of these items.
Absolutely. But yeah, I know when we had our visit, because we know the culture of Virginia State and how things can go into certain offices and hang out and, maybe grow have some children and all that kind of stuff, 9 months later. For that reason, we insisted on paying for as much as we could before our team came. One, so the team would be comfortable, and then to be totally transparent because we didn't want to be embarrassed because, and I love what they do here because they whenever they say the Commonwealth, it's not going to be good. It's like, and because we have an antiquated system where if we pay for something by check, it's initiated on campus, but the check comes from Richmond. It's insane. So we only have so much control. So to avoid that, I said to my dean and my provost, we want to do it like this, and they agreed. And so I think that sometimes schools may want to consider that because we know internally what we're dealing with, and we can't change that.
Yes.
So I think just to have that professional courtesy, because that's what we did. We paid for airline, we paid for as much as we could before the team came, so that we didn't have someone waiting to be reimbursed, because sometimes it can take a little longer, than we would like, even with reimbursement as employees. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks, sometimes it takes 4. It just kind of
Right.
depends if they're closing out or what's going on. And so maybe even something like that to just get people to do as much as they can up front, to be collegial and out of consideration for your colleagues. Because, regardless of how the visit goes, it's like you're literally getting 3 really good consultants coming in, giving you feedback, and
Yeah.
it would cost way more than what's reimbursed.
Never looked at it like that, but you are exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
That is definitely correct. Well, listen, I want to thank you all for your time today. As I said, I'll be
Thank
sending
you.
PowerPoint
Thank
slides
you.
to the commission. And therefore the commission to send out the slides to anybody that was not able to make it. And they'll also be sending out a copy of this, because I know I was talking really fast trying to get through 41 slides, and we did. So listen, thank you all for your participation.
I'll tell
comments.
Dr. Mosley you shouted her
Thank
out,
you
but
so
she's not in
much.
hospitality anymore.
Who was that?
Dr. Mosley, she's not in
Oh, she's
hospitality.
not?
Now
Oh,
Yeah, she's still on campus, but she's not in hospitality.
okay, because she would call me sometimes on site visits and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. And I would say, well, this is how I would deal with it if I was
That
there.
sounds like her. That sounds like her.
So listen, thank you all for your time today. And
Thank you.
And
Bye-bye.
definitely for
Good
your
to see you,
comments.
Clark.
Nice meeting you
Definitely
guys.
for your comments and your concerns and your questions. I think those are going to help, others that will watch this video start to get their
Mhm.
minds thinking
Yeah,
about
because we don't want
choices
people
that
to
haven't
not
happened.
do visits because they had a situation with reimbursement.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Bye-bye. Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
all
Bye,
of you.
everybody.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Dave.